and then I'm going to transition.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for waiting. We decided to delay the broadcast of the live Q&A with our classic lurkers, our original lurkers in the lobbies, for a little bit to let those of you who had trouble getting into Shorts Block 1 a little time to catch up. So hopefully that is all working now for everyone as intended, with no time locks or anything like that. You should be able to access it until midnight tomorrow night Pacific time. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our lurkers in the lobby. Number one, founder Andrew Migliori.
Hello.
He created this festival back in 1995 and held the first one in 1996. What?
We don't seem to have audio.
No audio? Hold on. We lost audio. It was just working, right?
I know. Getting the test and everything.
See, I knew I should not have put the stuff up here.
The stars are not right.
Now that I deciphered it from Latin and Greek, it says to correct the volume and audio, you must. Okay.
You have a Naki in there too. Call Brian Usna.
Okay. All right. So there, user error. My we're monitoring the sound on my laptop, and apparently it was muted for some reason, but I didn't do that. You did that. Anyway, so Andrew Migliori, the founder and creator of the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival from 1995 up until 2010. Brian and I took over the festival in 2011 and have been running it ever since. Thank you, Andrew. Without you, we wouldn't be, all these misfits wouldn't be here.
True. Well, thanks.
We've got Christian Matsky, who made Nyarlathotep, which we think is one of the best adaptations of the story that we've seen. It really kind of creates and captures that sort of dreamy, the otherworldly feeling of the story, and really nicely puts into visuals like the essence of the story. So thank you for being with us, Christian.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this as we get in more into the Q&A, but Christian has also made other films that we've shown at the festival. And we've got Rick Tillman, who did The Summoning.
Cheers, everyone.
And that was from 2004, I believe. Like, yeah. Brian and I started coming to the festival in 2002. So that was one of the first films we would have seen at the theater. And has it actually been played anywhere else since then?
I think there was another festival in Europe or something that it played at.
Okay.
It's been 16 years.
Okay. So everyone here got to see it unearthed from the vault from a very long time ago. We have John Streisick, the writer and director of the music of Eric Zahn, and that was made in 1980. Mm-hmm. So one of the earliest films on record. And John is also a screenwriter and has many, many, many credits. Go look up his IMDb profile and you'll be astounded. And we have Aaron Vanek, who made The Outsider. He also made the Weird Tales Yellow Sign featurette film, and a bunch of other films as well. John and Aaron, their films were played at the very first H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, along with Brian Usna's Necronomicon.
There's a weird story about that, by the way, about me and Aaron being weird, first of all. But we both went to the same college in Chicago, many years apart. We both made Lovecraft movies, and we both contacted, and not knowing each other, we both contacted Migliori about showing the movies because he had a site called Beyond Books, which was talking about adaptations of Lovecraft films.
Yep.
Doing this without knowing each other at all. It was in the stars, I guess. Huh?
And it really, John's, I started, when I did that website in 95, I got, John was one of the early people who contacted me, and he said, oh, I have this short film. And that kind of like blew my mind. It was like amazing. And then I had other people in Hollywood started contacting me because like this was the early days of the web. And so there wasn't a lot of content. And that's why I think Aaron and John probably both contacted me. But it was great putting those folks together. And we got to put that first festival on. And, the classic story was John said, hey, why don't you show my film? And I said, oh, I'll make a film festival. Not being very bright that I am. So that's where we were. And,
I think it was a great idea.
yeah, Aaron's hair was down to here, though. I think,
Oh,
Aaron.
yeah, there's a picture. Oh, yeah. No, this was before 95. This must have, because The Outsider was like 93, 94. So your website was like 92. And I saw it just because I was looking at Lovecraft stuff. Yeah. And I was looking at Lovecraft stuff. And what you did, Andrew, is you reviewed and listed all the Lovecraft adaptations, which wasn't that many, maybe 20.
It was 24.
And less, we got Reanimator and From Beyond and the Dunwich Horror and Castle Freak, I think was out at that time, and Haunted Palace, all the films that you guys have shown at the festival. But as I went down the list, Unnameable 2, I was checking off, like saw it, I disagree with your review, I agree with your review. But there was one movie that I had not seen, and it was John's Music of Eric Zahn. It's like, what is this movie I haven't seen? I need to see it so I can be a completist. And
Right.
oh, by the way, can you send me this film? Will you screen my film or put my film up, The Outsider? Because I made also at Columbia College Chicago, the school that John and I went to, one of my films was The Outsider, which you guys might have just seen or will see. And I said, can you list it? Because, oh my God, be listing on a website in 93, 94 was amazing. So please list my movie. But in the exchange, I think, because Andrew was asking John for a VHS tape.
Yeah.
John, can you make a VHS dub of Eric Zahn to send to this guy Vanek in Chicago?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and tell him I went to Columbia. And so that's how it started, was John saw, oh, Aaron's got a film and I got a film, and why don't you do something? And I want to add real quick, because I was just so impressed on this. We got to tell Columbia. Robert Capoletto's To Oblivion is Columbia College as well. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, yes, I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's 3 Columbia College, early Columbia College films screening. Whoa! Wow.
Oh, by the way, Gwen, I got to say, I watched it.
You should appear.
Gwen,
That
I was
is
watching
amazing.
I was watching the block where you have our films in, and you and Brian are doing a fantastic job restoring these movies. Kudos to you guys. I mean, they're really looking beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
They're
I mean, it was the
looking
best
great.
I've ever seen Aaron's film. I mean, it was really nice.
That's great.
Nice
So
restoration.
those are lightly restored. Like Brian hasn't gotten into the all the color correction that he wants to do and all this frame stabilization and everything. But we thought people should see kind of just the fidelity that's still there in the 16 millimeters. So for
If
all,
it looks
for
any
those
better,
of
I'll
you-
go mad.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know.
And
Robert,
Those of you who
I
aren't
gotta,
familiar.
Robert,
Those-
did you just sign on because I was talking about you? Did you hear?
No.
I was literally
No,
just
hopefully
talking
it was
about you.
good.
oh, hey.
Robert,
Hi,
everyone, this
Robert.
is Robert Capoletto did To Oblivion. You, me,
literally
and John
popped
all went to Columbia College.
Well, I was kind of hoping John would be here because I, as a student, worked on Uneasy Silence.
You did?
I was
Wow.
technically I was a PA,
Uh-huh.
and it was kind of a funny story. I had a car, and not too many people had a car on the crew.
Yeah.
And every time, like an errand needed to be run, it's like, hey, I'll go do it, but can I like not be a PA anymore? Can I be a grip? And then I kind of like grew in the rank just because I'd run and get filters from someplace. So
Next thing you know, you're a
Yeah.
producer.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I know,
What
it's
he's
great,
talking
yeah.
about, it's a feature film we did back in Chicago about 2 homeless people, back in the 80s. And amazing you were. I mean, it's funny you said you had a car because we were shooting in really bad locations.
yeah,
And we hired a cop to watch our cars, to make sure they didn't get broken into. And while the cop's watching our car, his car got stolen.
Aw.
But that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thanks for working on that movie, man. I mean,
Oh
that's,
yeah, no, it was a lot of. I got to tell you, it
I
was,
hope he paid you something.
No, but I got to
I
tell you,
didn't.
I learned more from Michael Goy.
Yeah, Goy was,
Oh.
yeah.
Than all the time I spent at Columbia. I mean, just a couple of doing his setups. It was like, oh, he's doing it completely different than what Columbia is teaching you to do.
Right.
And it's
And
like,
you guys, viewers should know, I'm going to interrupt and I'm aware of time and stuff. Michael Goy, who shot Music of Eric Zahn and John's film and a number of other films, is the cinematographer, is famous. He's was or is, you could correct me, the head of the Cinematographers Guild, ASC.
yeah.
I don't know if he still
Yeah.
is, but
he's doing American Horror Story.
American
too.
Horror
He's
Story,
got-
yeah. Goy has a huge credit list of like mainstream stuff. He was shooting John's stuff. So if you
Yeah.
look at, and John can talk about Eric Zahn, I'm not going to take your thunder, but Michael Goy did an amazing job of it as a student
Absolutely.
going to Columbia College.
Yeah.
And now he's doing, HBO or Showtime, whatever it is.
I think
stuff.
he directs every TV show out here. It's amazing. He started like shooting with Ryan Murphy on American Horror Story and then worked his way into directing. And now that's all he's doing. As a matter of fact, he's directing that ABC show right now, Rookie. Do you know that show?
I don't.
But it's a cop
Not
show,
TV, but-
Oh,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just talk briefly about Mike. Mike is a genius, and when we both went to Columbia College at the same time, and Mike and I became friends, and we always talked about doing a movie. So I did a movie before Eric Zahn called Wild Fantasies. And it was such a terrible movie. When Goy was talking about shooting that, he said, after shooting Wild Fantasies, I almost wanted to give up filmmaking. So we were also at that time, just a year before in '78, Days of Heaven came out. If you remember that film, the Terrence Malick film,
It's
shot by Nestor Almendros.
natural.
And we were just blown away by it, all the natural lighting and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we tried to do. And Mike succeeded amazingly with Eric Zahn, they call them practical lights in movies. Usually they're not really lighting the scene. But in Eric Zahn, they are, the little fake oil lamps and all that kind of stuff. And it goes back to Lovecraft because one of Lovecraft's dictums was atmosphere, not action. So many of his stories, he's just trying to create a mood. And that's what we try to do with Eric Zahn. And I think it still works,
Oh yeah.
So it was one of the, it was definitely the film that launched a lot of this stuff for me, doing the website, Lurker Films, Film Festival, our book, so, for those who don't know,
Lurker,
John
yeah.
and I co-wrote Lurker in the Lobby, a guide to some of H.P. Lovecraft. Oh, there's the first edition that Aaron's showing. And we had a second edition that we did later.
I get that one too.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of,
it was a landmark film because it was like, there was a film before that was an amateur film with a
Whisper in Darkness.
Whisper in the Darkness, yeah, with J. Vernon Shea.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
75.
John's was the first one for me that really showed the potential. And my idea was always like, why doesn't PBS and mystery and all these BBC type shows, why isn't there good atmospheric Lovecraft adaptations? And why? And I think these early films, even if they lacked some of the technical aspects that modern filmmakers have the luxury of, I think everyone here helps contribute to the atmosphere and trying to capture the sense of cosmic horror and the fear of the unknown that Lovecraft was famous for. Yeah. So
That's a
congratulations, everyone.
That's something I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about. Most of you have also made films in the modern age with digital cameras and editing software and things like that. Think back to the early days when you had VHS camcorders and mini DV tapes and 16 millimeter film.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you missed about the old analog film making and film editing?
Go to
Or is it
Christian
pretty much-
or Rick.
You know what?
Haven't
There is
touched
a
yet.
certain amount of I know with my student film, like To Oblivion, I was just proud that I got anything done because the little amount of special effects that are in there, they took me months where I could have, like right now in Photoshop, knocked it out in like 15 minutes. I mean, just a little spaceship tracking across some stars. That was optical printing and,
Yeah.
you know,
I-
an Oxberry animation stand and
Oh wow.
pass after
Nice.
pass of different lights on top of the spaceship. And you look at it now and it's, you know, it's kind of a joke. You know, you see the little thing go by and say, yeah, you know, whatever.
That's
But
right.
it's, you know, it was like 6 months worth of work.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well,
you know, it's just hard for people to appreciate just how hard it was back
Right.
then.
And the
you
I,
know?
too.
I
because
love some of
everything
the
you
little
do-
touches, like the you know, the text appearing across his face and all those.
Oh,
That sort of
yeah,
alien.
that was a slide projector, which I don't even think anyone can find anymore. So, you know,
Slide.
But everything you did, like you're talking about, had any practical effects, and then anything that you were doing, post that is one time intensive. It costs money, right? So you're shooting on, if you're shooting on film, you've got to shoot it. You've got a budget to pay for the film. You got to then get it developed. You got to wait, then figure out, and then you go, crap, maybe I didn't capture it. It's not in the can, right? So
Well,
know,
also it makes special effects more justified because they are so difficult to do.
Yeah.
It isn't just something you're doing at the computer. There's a new release, a Criterion release of War of the Worlds, the 1950 version of it.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing to watch it. It's, they went back to the Technicolor negatives and retransferred it, and everything is real slow, yet it's fantastic. And a modern day version would have, spaceships zipping all over the place. But these were all practical effects, just hanging by piano wire,
Yep.
and it's amazing.
I think what happened at the early films, because I just watched them myself, early films, and kudos to all the early filmmakers and you guys and Rick and Robert Christian. Like, oh my God, I was very, very impressed with what we've done with what we had, because I know how little we had, budget wise, production wise, to make this stuff. And so these early films, I think maybe viewers will notice that we've had very little budget, experience, crew, talent, etc. And so Lovecraft stories fit this, I think, because it was very much hidden in things like shadows and suggestion and then like one effect. And so we really oftentimes had money for one effect. In The Outsider, all my budget went into the makeup. The amazing makeup that Harvey Allen Dixon made was a full headpiece, chest piece, hand piece. That was a full, makeup headset. So that was ours. So that was where all my money went, right? On a budget of, I don't know, I think it was like $6,000. It was like 1,000 to 2,000 makeup. The rest of it, film print and stuff. And so it was interesting that there was a conflux of the technology. The limitations we had was limited, but Lovecraft's story elements lent it to that, because he was all about atmosphere and mood with just a few effects. And nowadays, if we weren't there, it's like, oh, we'll just start doing all the CG stuff in all these effects because it's easier. So we had to be very judicious about where we spent our money on effects. And I think Lovecraft's stories particularly lent themselves to the 1-2 good effects or locations and things like that.
But I also think all the filmmakers, especially early on, it was hard, right? It may be, you might, some of it might be a little bit laughable, or the technology at the time wasn't so great. The quality was a little grainy, maybe. But what made up for it was
You
trying
mean
to
your sea monkeys, Andrew?
get the sea monkeys, like my film I did with Ken Avenosa.
I liked them.
Thank you. I put sea monkeys inside of an ant farm and put it in front of the camera to get the from beyond effect of things coming through. It was a cheap effect, but
That's
it
cool.
worked.
It worked.
But anyway, you have heart, right? That's the thing. I mean, that's what was amazing about Music of Eric Zahn, The Outsider, all these things. It showed me the possibilities, and that's, we're striving to try to capture that the fear of the unknown and the cosmic horror and in man's position in the universe, and that stuff was fantastic. So
This is the thing about Lovecraft. He brings that out in people.
Yeah.
He was this big-hearted guy, and when you read his stories, that's what I get from him, and it made us kind of dedicate ourselves to try to reproduce these stories as accurately as we can. And it's all Lovecraft. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's like If you don't have the story, you have nothing. That's the main thing, the
Yeah.
story.
And then there is something that was always lasting about Lovecraft, right? Lovecraft stories, especially the really good ones, really getting the cosmic horror, linger. There's something that lasted more than just the words. You knew what was going to happen, you could see it, but it was that buildup of atmosphere. But as someone who moved around a lot, I did not fit in most of society. Like I went every high school, I was an outsider because I didn't fit in. So that I mean, I think that really resonated with me in the sense of being isolated and just another collection of atoms. You know, here I am.
Right.
So
Well, I
kinda,
mean, and also Lovecraft hated most of his stories, but he did say, I'm sincere. I'm trying to be sincere in what I'm writing. He wasn't trying to be something he wasn't. And I think that reality or that sincerity comes across. You know, he wasn't a phony. And that's why I think his work will always live, and plus the whole cosmic horror and our place in the universe and all that kind of thing.
You look at stories like Color Out of Space and you know, and which were not as much, but you look at that and especially Color Out of Space, it's just so powerful. And you think of the ramifications. It's just
well, that was sort of his favorite of his own stories, right?
Yeah, color. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it really is. It's pretty chilling. And we have it today. I mean, in our world, we are fragile organisms living on the planet. You know, it's just
the virus out of space. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So it could go bad. Who knows?
So we've got somebody in our chat window says a spoof baby says Columbia must be the in real life Miskatonic University.
Maybe it was. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some madness. There's stories that we could say about Columbia College.
I got to tell you, when I first went there were rats in the wall, literally. It was pretty much
a
dump.
Pretty run down. When I was there too, still it was pretty run down. It's not like that now, but yeah.
Yeah, it's become a huge thing. What it's known for, it has a long history. It's actually interesting. I don't know if Robert, John, you know, but it started as a women's oratory school in like 1890s, turn of the century, somewhere around like Chicago Exposition, the 1893s. And it was very much, it's downtown in the Loop, Chicago, and it's very much like working class school. And it used to just be like empty warehouses in the 60s and 70s that they started opening up art school stuff that you could do. And so when I was there at transition, they were building, but it was like buildings in the downtown Loop, and you're walking past homeless people to get to class. And but the advantage of it that was very interesting was it was very much working in terms of like, we're giving you the equipment right away. Like I made a film my very first day in film. I went to graduate film school. I got my MFA there. Day one, I made an animation. They gave me blank film strip. They go draw on these 60mm film strips. He edited together and screened it. Like day one, I showed 3 seconds of a movie that I drew. So it was very much hands-on.
It was. Which
I think had a huge thing for us, right? That people would go and do this. And it was interesting. The Outsider was my year one last film. It's called Tech 2, my second semester film. We use color film now, where our first one was black and white film. So we deal with color and sound. And so there's a review. The graduate students all get a review of it, and they reviewed it. And my teacher advisors like hated it. They hated my movie. They're like, "Why are you making this horror movie? Why is he covered in makeup? We can't see the actor's face." And I'm like, "Because he's a ghoul." Like, what do you mean? So they started going arty. It's definitely got like an arty element to it that went in, but the baseline of Columbia was very much just go and do it, and that's that kind of brazen, just go and do it. And I think that also goes to Lovecraft, right? He was big in the amateur press. Just go and do it. And I hope that you filmmakers out there, aspiring filmmakers and everything, and I've heard this, I hope that my film, The Outsider, and other films, like inspire you to make something. Either like, oh my God, that sucks, I could do a better job than that. You probably can. Do it. Or like, oh, we could do this. Like the potential and the possibility of writing a Lovecraft story or making a Lovecraft movie or doing something like that. Yes, you can do it. And I'm hoping that you will do it, and you'll fail and you'll fall, but you love the passion that Andrew mentioned, and you keep doing it, because I want to see your guys' movies and read your stories and all that stuff.
I was wondering, Kristen
Yeah,
and Rick, did you guys go to film school, or how did you get involved?
I went after a little bit after I made Pickman's Model.
After school?
Because light summoning, I think, looks like I had somewhat of an idea of where to put lights and things on this one.
So Rick and I'm working with a few of you, like John and Aaron and Christian, on this new Classics Volume 3 DVD. I'm working with Rick on his Pickman's Model, but we didn't want to show all the films that we're going to put on the DVD tonight, so we played his a later film of his, which is The Summoning, and that's what you were saying, isn't it? That you went to film school between the two movies, right?
Yeah, not a full film school per se. Here in Seattle, there's like the Seattle Film Institute. I took a bunch of classes and stuff, and have tried to use that going forward with other things. I mean, kind of going like with what Andrew said and Aaron, with the inspiration is like, when I was growing up, reading Lovecraft, I found the Dunwich Horror, Die Monster Die, things like that, and I was always looking for Lovecraft films. And then one day on that interwebs thing that Andrew mentioned, I found The Lurker in the Lobby, Volume 1 on VHS disc. And seeing that, which has The Outside, The Outsider and music of Eric Zahn on it, seeing that, it really inspired me of just, like, wow, people, somebody other than Stuart Gordon are actually making Lovecraft films.
I'm glad you mentioned my old buddy Stuart. Obviously, he died this year in March, and I hope you guys are going to do some kind of tribute to him. I mean, he obviously deserves it. I mean, and I met him because of the book Andrew and I co-wrote. We went to interview him, and he was another big-hearted guy that would talk to anybody. And
from Chicago.
Why we were interviewing him, I said,
and from Chicago.
It's from Chicago. I mean, I was a fan of his when I was in Chicago, because he had this thing called the Organic Theater, and they were just this wild theater group. It was just amazing. And as a matter of fact, ironies of ironies, just before he died, Fangoria announced they were going to release his autobiography called Naked Theater and Uncensored Horror. But I don't know what happened to it. It just kind of disappeared. I would love to read this book.
It's got to come out. I don't know, but
I don't know. I mean, Fangoria seems to be out of business. They haven't changed their website in months. Anyway, that's a whole different thing.
But, yeah, we all love Stuart. Was a big help for me early in the days of the film festival. Same as Brian Usna. Obviously, I got a story, but I'm going to save it for our tribute. But anyway.
I got some stories too.
Everybody has some Stuart stories. But even if you think about like Reanimator, what Stuart and Brian had to go through to get Reanimator out, and stuff, a same kind of spirit of independence and brazen, let's just do this sort of situation that comes in. And I think that, for all his stuffiness, as a gentleman, that there's a little rock and roll in Lovecraft of DIY it, right?
Course.
Amateur press and do that. And I think all gravitate to that. And I think that there's an appeal to that of like, I'm not going to follow convention, the conventional Gothic horror story. I'm going to go do this thing that I'm passionate about that John mentioned and do that. And I think all of us are doing that or trying to do that. And hopefully you guys can see that. And hopefully, this passion is infectious in a good way, good infection.
So Christian, I was wondering, I mean, we heard from Rick. What about you, Christian? How did you get into the whole Lovecraft film thing?
Okay, there was a website called Cinemagoria by a guy named Corey Whitworth.
Yep.
And Whitworth. He had a photo of Aaron's Outsider. He had the makeup, just saying, this is it. This is the best thing. And so through him, I contacted Aaron. And that's then how I found you and Beyond Books, and got involved with you guys, and worked a little bit with Aaron on Return to Innsmouth. And then you guys were relentless. You're like, you've got to make a movie. And I'm like, I'm finishing a degree in political science.
Perfect.
Never picked a camera up in my life. There we go. Return to Innsmouth. I think I did the website or some stuff like that. But yeah, it was just, all right, let's do this thing. And the idea of having a home for the finished product was a huge part of it. Like, if I make a movie, I'll bring it out to Portland. We'll show it.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
This is huge. I mean, I was talking to my wife Kirsten after this, and sorry to interrupt, but Andrew, like, seriously, I honestly believe, and I could be wrong, but my belief is that this whole Lovecraft resurgence and popularity everywhere that it's going is not directly, but partially attributable to the festival, in all seriousness. The fact that I, as a filmmaker, are like, oh my gosh, if I make a Lovecraft film, I have a distribution outlet for it. There's a festival, there's people who are going to enjoy it and watch it. So I'm going to make more of these. And Stuart saw it and the festival and did Dagon, you know, and I think that's part of it. And people are seeing, and Richard Stanley, all these guys seeing, like, wait, there's an audience for this, a huge sold out festival, year in and year out. We're going on 25 years, 26 years, that all this Lovecraft stuff, you know, you guys really seriously, I kudos to you, Andrew and Brian and Gwen and everything, because I seriously think that the festival is part of this. I really do. Just keeping 100%. It in there.
Well, we're working. I'm working on this new Classics Volume 3 that a bunch of you are involved in, and one of the things when we're putting together the films is I started to notice how everybody's name was in each other's credits.
Yeah.
So it's, thanks Aaron Vanek, thanks Andrew Migliore. We've got a film there by Craig Mullins as well.
Yeah.
And he lists Rick Tillman as doing something as the special effects or something. And
is reading a story?
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I did props for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe it was Christian. Yeah. But they,
go ahead.
It's funny. It's just funny how there's like a chain, and that really changed what we were going to do with the DVD, because it was going to be a little different. It was going to be kind of like newer and older. But I thought it was really fun that that you could see this kind of Lovecraft circle.
Yeah.
By watching the credits.
And Brian, that was totally intentional on my part. I wanted to bring everyone, like, hey, sound, you can do lighting, you can do camera, that we'd have resources. And no one remembers this probably, but I had a website called The Lurker originally, which was meant to be a resource thing, which technology wise, I just didn't keep up on it. But the idea was really, I always thought this was fantastic, and I think I met some of my best friends through the film festival because of liked interest, right? And so helping each other over time. John and I wrote a book. I helped, I think, a little bit Dunwich, Christian's film.
But see, this continues Lovecraft. This continues his thing, because he had a circle of people, that met all the time, and great writers came out of it. And again, I won't mention what I can't talk about, but I don't want to dwell on a negative part of Lovecraft. Lovecraft was a big-hearted guy, and he could get a letter from some punk-nosed kid in, Poughkeepsie, and he would write a 20-page letter back to him, and be really concerned, and he would look at his stories, and he would, make suggestions and help him out. This is a really good human being, and I don't want us to forget about that. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
We talked about this, and we knew the Lurkers circle. Like, we were called the Lurkers, and we would hang out, and we would have the breakfast at Andrew's house on Sunday. What's now the Prayer Breakfast Festival started as Andrew's breakfast at his place, and we'd brunch, and we'd hang out with everything, and we were this circle of people. And what's interesting, just the growth of the festival, because this is in like the mid 90s. First festival was 95, 94, 95. And so we're 25 years. And there was a point where we all knew each other, right? We knew the films, and we were helping each other on the films. You helped mine. We were all helping each other, and it exploded with all these films. And there was a couple points where I just realized, like, I am wave one, and there's a wave two of filmmakers out there that have seen our stuff and are now making movies. And they're the new hot ticket doing stuff and the amazing work that all these other people are doing. And it was sad, but also happy in a way, where I was at a point where like I can't keep up with the movies. I can't keep up with all these Lovecraft movies coming out. And that's a good thing. There's so many coming out that I can't follow it. But it was, we used to all be in this little tight circle, which is great. But now it's huge.
Just quickly, this happened to me after I made Spawn, and I went out to Providence, and I don't exactly know what I was thinking, but I took a copy of Zahn with me, and I was walking around Providence, and of course I went to Brown University and college, and I said, I have this movie. Do you think anybody would be interested in looking at it? And they said, well, there's this guy in the basement. He's pretty much into Lovecraft. You might want to take it down and see him. And I swear to God, this is how it happened. I went down in the basement, and in this dark room, poring over Lovecraft's, cramped little handwriting was S.T. Joshi. And he goes, yes, I would like to see it. Yes, of course. So he gets out a 16 millimeter projector, shows it. He's blown away by it.
I find that
He brings me into a circle. We go into Boston and goes to a fantasy fest, and Burleson was there and some other Lovecraftians. And these guys were just fantastic. And they were all in the tradition of HP. They were trying to follow his example of being good to each other and help each other when you needed help. And it traces back to Lovecraft. He was a lovely guy. So thank you.
Yeah. And just a little tidbit, since I didn't know that you were putting Craig's film on the DVD, but so in the summoning, some of the tentacles are from the Mythos commercials that Andrew and Sean made and stuff. So I bought those from him at some point, and then when I used those in the summoning, I made some other tentacles, and then the ones that I made ended up being in Craig's film. So it's kind of
fun.
Passing on the tentacles.
That was a great effect. I thought that looked great. And Brian, you guys are doing a fantastic job restoring these movies.
Yeah.
You really are.
Yeah,
this is the first time I saw your restoration of Zahn, and I thought it was really good. So thank
Brian
you.
has done such a better job. Like, I don't have the technical chops as much, but like Cool Air, for example, it was scratch, a brand new print. Remember, John, when we kind of bailed Brian out and getting the print up here?
I remember.
Yeah, you and I remember. Okay, but we got the print, and we had the 16-year-old, maybe 18-year-old kid, like first time on the projector scratching the film. And when I released it in Local Films, I had to in Photoshop clean each frame. Brian did that, and I did it good enough. I said good enough, I'm gonna fix it, but good enough. Brian really cares, and so kudos to Brian for that.
Did way a huge amount of work on that.
Yeah, I mean, really
more than probably.
Thank you.
It took a long time.
Thank you for doing it, Brian. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
But Brian, your love really helps make these films come to life. So it's really,
I appreciate
so
it.
perfectionist.
Wait, we've got a couple comments from the audience. Brian Campbell said being able to talk to Stuart Gordon at the HP Lovecraft Film Festival was wonderful. So thank you for that. And that's Andrew really Stuart became such a festival friend that he would, anytime he could, he would come out. It seemed like.
Yeah, I was so excited to meet him there.
I can't remember how many times he's been many times. I can't remember anymore.
Yeah, and then he was a regular coming. He inaugurated when I did the Southern California, the Los Angeles Festival. He was there year one, but it was like getting the blessing, from the old man to come out and show Reanimator. And he was so kind. I mean, really, if you guys had a chance to talk to Stuart, he was, so kind and welcoming, and it was very sad. I was very shocked. We're in the middle of the pandemic, so we have all these other things, and then Stuart Gordon died, and I still kind of have to process it.
Yeah.
Well, this is the problem with this pandemic. You can't really get together to mourn anybody anymore. And we're all isolated, and it was a shock. I mean, I guess it wasn't the virus, because Stuart was not in great health.
His health,
but it still was a shock. Yeah.
Jack Donner died not too long ago. Same thing. And Stuart, was not doing well in October, and I regret not being able to get down to LA again. I really, I feel bad that we didn't get together one last time.
Yeah, Jack Donner being the actor in Brian Moore's Cool Air. We were talking about Cool Air. Jack Donner, famous actress, wonderful actor. If you
Star
see
Trek.
Cool
Star
Air, Star Trek,
Yeah.
he's awesome.
He was going to be
Jack
the
Donner's
lead in
awesome.
Last Incantation as well. So I had flown down to talk to Jack to get into the Last Incantation, and that's when he became sick. And so I waited 10 years in that film. That's another thing. You filmmakers who are out there who have an idea, go just do it.
Yeah.
You're going to regret later not executing against.
Don't wait.
Yeah.
Anyway, that happened.
Rest in peace, Stuart.
Fantastic.
Otherwise, we'll get some green fluid. We're gonna get some green
Yeah.
fluid and find out where you are.
It has to be fresh, and
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Let's send the reanimator juice to Trump and say it cures COVID. Try it. It's better than bleach.
We never did that. They were going to do the White House reanimator, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
You
that's right.
really wanted to do that. Yeah.
We heard something recently. Was that something that was sort of like a public knowledge thing, or not really? That the next reanimator was maybe on track. Yuzna and Penny.
Yeah, and I feel like Barbara mentioned something about that.
Yeah.
Too. Barbara Crampton mentioned something.
By the way,
think
could I put in a plug for this this African American kid I just kind of stumbled across on YouTube? He's an amazing Lovecraftian. He has ST's knowledge of the Cthulhu mythos. And if you guys are going to do something, with the coming festival, you should contact him because I assume it's going to be virtual. His name,
Absolutely.
his YouTube channel is called Quinn's Ideas, QUINNS.
That actually sounds super familiar.
Yeah, it does sound familiar.
You should watch it.
You,
I mean, his introduction to Lovecraft is amazing. So anyway, a little plug for him.
So can I back up a second because I wanted to ask Rick a question about the summoning. The scene in the basement with the pentagram that lights up on the floor and the rings, was that all practical?
The rings going up in the air wasn't practical. That was Adobe Premiere, but everything else was practical.
But the floor, like the floor lighting up, was practical.
Yeah, huge fan of silent films and stuff.
Yeah, Metropolis.
Yes. Yeah. And then actually the pentagram lighting up is like from Murnau's Faust. Kind of cribbed it from that. Is like I said, after I did Pickman's modeling, I started taking some film classes, and of course, I always knew about like Derek Golem and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and things like that, and Metropolis. And I went more into it, and I just got super heavy into looking at all those things. And then I kind of had tried to think like, well, how would Murnau have done that and stuff? And basically what we did was, in my friend Ray's and Ariana's house, we took their basement, we made a false floor on it. It was about yay thick. And then we had a section that was like reversible. So like a 4x4 section that was all plywood that had the holes cut in it. And then we had Christmas lights and a fog machine underneath of it. When we had just the circle, then it came up with the circle, and then we had a static shot. So then when we went to the pentagram part, we just flipped it over, and then there was more holes cut out for the pentagram. I still have it in storage.
Filmmaker's best friend, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that's a really great effect. And if you haven't seen, for anybody that's listening, if you haven't seen Murnau's Faust, that film is amazing. I mean, it's just really off the charts. All that great. The bit where Mephisto appears like huge over the town, and all of those wonderful effects he did in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody knows Nosferatu, nobody knows Faust. It's a shame.
I wanted to ask Kristen a question about Nalar Hotep. Do you think he was based on Tesla? The way Lovecraft describes him, going from town to town, and these kind of electrical demonstrations he was giving. And did you do any research on that?
We leaned into that very hard. The whole costume was based on Tesla. And, to our very limited budget, we tried to give the impression of, putting on a light show and having some sort of electrical thing. Because that's what Lovecraft mentions, that there's sparks and there's, images projected. So I absolutely think for that story, it's a Tesla situation. So we transitioned from, the Egyptian pharaoh to, a man in modern America, dressing that way, but still having some aspects. So yeah, we were playing with that.
That's
for
cool.
sure.
I kind of thought you did, but I just wanted to double check, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's such
It was great. It was great seeing that
film.
film.
Yeah. You've seen it before, John,
Oh
right?
yeah, of course. Yeah. But it's looking better and better with what you're doing. So
I was just looking at it tonight and I thought, I could make some changes. Could be cleaned up a little more.
Yeah, you got to learn when to stop.
Yeah,
you have a couple more weeks to clean it up. So.
It's such a wonderful film, though. I mean, I love everything. I love the history that you bring into it as well, the wartime elements of it, to really kind of flesh out the story. And it's not that long of a movie, but you still managed to provide much more of a story than Lovecraft did. What kind of led you down that path?
I thought it was important that we have a sense of who the narrator is, even just a little bit, and Dr. Burke is what I named him. And it comes from a dream that Lovecraft had, where he has to go and talk to somebody named Dr. Burke about something. So I thought, okay, we have this doctor, and I don't know where the World War I aspect came from, except that I had some costumes. So, all right, let's do that. But it's kind of funny, the two Lovecraft films that I've made that I'm the proudest of, Nyarlathotep and Experiment 17, which is my idea of, what if the Germans found the Necronomicon, read from it, and it goes horribly. So I have this very rational character of Dr. Burke from Nyarlathotep, who he doesn't give in to the superstition. He's trying to make sense of things, and he still dies, but whatever. And then we have Helmut Koch, the German who reads the Necronomicon and dies. And they're almost like the angel and demon on my shoulder of, the rational versus the irrational. So that's just something about the character of Dr. Burke has really stuck with me, is, even in the face of all the strange things that Nyarlathotep is showing, he keeps his cool. Then Nyarlathotep turns into a monster. So
we just the other night watched the follow-up to Experiment 17, Experiment 18.
Oh, yeah.
And that really, really has we were like, I know that Christian made this, but the look of it is so perfect. It really does feel like it could be a historical film. Mm-hmm. It really feels like an old film. And now we were saying, maybe because it's on YouTube, I think that's where we watched it. But
I didn't put it there.
Oh,
but somebody put it up in 2 parts, I think. So I wasn't.
Oh.
I'll send you the link.
Thanks.
But maybe it's the YouTube compression, maybe kind of brought it down, so it's got a little bit of that sort of, a little bit of blur or smoothing or whatever. But it really felt, and everything, the Foley that you do in that is also really great. Really gives the impression that this is a classic film. And then I didn't realize that the fellow who plays, who's in your film Dunwich, plays
Hitler.
Yeah. Gwen pointed it out. It's like, oh, that's
and
oh my God,
it's that guy.
It's Experiment 32. That's when I think you really nailed it.
Yeah.
Well, you know how the Coen brothers, every time they'd bring Steve Buscemi back, they would reduce him to smaller and smaller parts. First he goes through the wood chipper, and whatever. I wanted to keep bringing back Helmut Koch as a more and more, deformed monster, and have him get blown up into smaller pieces in the later films.
Yeah. Be good.
Which the actor would say, hey, it's work.
Just get an eyeball left.
my only Stuart Gordon story was that the year that I came out with Experiment 17 was the year that he was there, and I was late for the awards assembly, and Patti Smith called me a loser because I wasn't there. I got the Audience Choice Award or something. She did. It was awesome. So
that's an honor.
And I was, my acceptance speech was, thanks, I'm not a Nazi, because here I am, shaved head and wearing all this crazy stuff. And so here's Stuart Gordon, and I didn't want him to think anything weird of me. And he gave me the biggest hug and gave me his business card. And he just was such a sweet guy. So that worked out.
He was.
So I have a question for Robert, because looking at all of the other films that are kind of either sort of set in contemporary era for like music of Eric Zahn, or you know, in the past, like 1920s, 1930s look. And you decided to make a film that was like futuristic in look. What was that something that you just had in mind that you wanted to do? Was that a conscious decision that you made?
It's kind of hard to say. I think because it was film school, it's like I could make one project, and I was torn between, you know, I kind of want to make an outer space movie. I kind of want to make like a Lovecraft story. And actually, I had a friend who never really gets credit for from David Block, and we worked together, and we kind of just hashed it out amongst ourselves. We just kind of squashed two ideas together. So that's kind of where it came from. I can't say it was some big artistic, you know, whatever. I was like 18 years old, I think, when I made it. So,
Wow.
yeah, my God, it was like 1988 or something like that. So, yeah, I don't have too, is 30 years old. I don't have too many memories of, just remember being in the Oxbury room with those special effects. So,
it's, I should interject here that this is, you know, this is a short film that we play of yours occasionally, but that you're also responsible for, I think, the only sort of good adaptation of Haunter of the Dark, which is called Pickman's Muse.
Yes, that was kind of a labor of love too. I actually, you know, it's funny. It's I met Aaron at one of the Necronomicons, and I remember I drove out to it from Chicago to Rhode Island, and on the way home, I had Haunter of the Dark as like a book on tape that I had bought out there. And after meeting Aaron, I was like, you know what, I kind of want to make a movie, because like video was just kind of starting to be possible. And I was listening to that tape all the way home. So I listened to it like 3 or 4 times. And yeah, pretty much, you know, that was the, you know, the inspiration was the Necronomicon, and I was finding out about the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, and the only reason I made the film was like, oh, it'd be kind of fun to go out to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival with a film, as opposed to just being, you know, just someone in the audience. It's like, oh, I can be a star for the day, you know. And yeah, but the thing is, filmmaking, that thing took me like 2 years to make, and I essentially moved into a warehouse because all the sets in the movie were built. They weren't locations. So essentially I moved into the set, and I was living on the set for a year or two. But one of the sets was, you know, like a padded room, an insane asylum kind of thing. And I got to tell you, there's nothing stranger than waking up in the morning and you're laying on, you know, tiled floor with a padded wall, and it's like, you know, what's
it
going
finally
on?
happened.
Yeah, am I a crazy person in this place? Yeah, it's a whole story.
That's what David Lynch did when he was making Eraserhead. He was living in the guy's bedroom with a baby. So.
That story, Robert, I'm so glad you said it. I think that happened because that happened the same thing with me. And I got a question I'm going to actually ask Brian and Gwen that like after I did Return to Innsmouth, and then I did a film, Larry Locke gave me The King in Yellow by Chambers. He's like, you need to read this. And here's a printout of the King in Yellow. And I was on the flight to Necronomicon in Providence, possibly the one where I met you, Robert. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And read The King in Yellow on the plane. And I got to Repair of Reputations, and I'm like 30,000 feet up, and like this scared me. Like I am terrified reading Repair of Reputations. But then I did The Yellow Sign because I read that one. I go, I can do this. I don't think I could do Repair of Reputations. So I'm wondering, my question to Brian and Gwen, like we got a bunch of stories, us lurkers. You tell us, because haven't been, is there still the same filmmaking community that is inspiring one another and giving each other props and actors and music and things like that? I'm really genuinely curious.
There is, but it's not as close of a circle as you guys were. I mean, I think that what's happening, like even on the screen right now, is really special. But we have regular filmmakers that now sometimes work together. But it's not the same. Back when the festival, I think, was a much tighter knit community. You guys really were involved in making films with each other and for each other, and helping out on projects. And I think that's definitely not as big of a part of it as it used to be, for sure.
I wonder if the audience size has a lot to do, because I remember that Necronomicon, there couldn't have been 30 of us there, so we were all kind of hanging out together, so it was a little easier to get closer to somebody than in a giant theater with I don't know how many you pack in there these days, 500 people, 1,000 people.
And just the numbers of filmmakers too. In other words,
Yeah.
tight knit.
Yeah.
We were smaller. Like I said, I knew there was a point where we knew, at least by correspondence, every filmmaker that kind of had a film, and it was all about, oh, Christian's got a new film and Rick's doing a film. And that's why you saw all our credits at the same, because even if we didn't work on each other's film, we knew each other. But there was a point where it got so big that we couldn't keep track of everybody. And other people were coming in, and we lose touch. Like Jane Rose. Do you guys remember Jane Rose?
Yeah.
I was out in New York talking to her about was a Pickman's Model adaptation.
Yeah.
I believe it was Pickman's Model, and just drift apart, because each year, and thank you for having the festival each year, more and more filmmakers were drawn in, and so the pool got bigger. You're making a bigger pool, and so we got distant. We were big fish in small pond, but now it's a big pond, and we're smaller fish.
And things change. People have their own.
Part of that is that we get more and more submissions, and as technology has become more accessible to the lay person who just wants to pick up their iPhone and make a movie, and can do that and make a decent looking movie, if they have some of these guys have a great story, and that's where they start, and then they just kind of shoot it with their friends and family, and so we get more and more submissions, so we try to make more and more time to play as much as we can. But I think you're right, that has an effect on kind of the interpersonal relationships, because it does get harder to gather them all together, and not all the filmmakers can always come, because we get a lot of international submissions. And one of the things that was nice about Portland Horror was that we were able to do these virtual Q&As where we had someone from Russia and someone from Poland and somebody from the UK and someone from LA on the call talking to each other. And one of the things that we did was kind of share everyone's contact information so that they could kind of keep in touch. And I think that's something that will carry on. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of a little core of guys and gals that are making films, like Thomas Nickel, for example, submitted a film, I think, to almost every single one of our past 8, 9, 10 film festivals.
And astounding.
Yeah, he kind of has our number now, so he kind of, I think, knows when he makes a film we'll automatically select. He was an example I was going to mention, because he does meet folks at the festival and then works with them sometimes. So he's out in Champaign.
Yeah.
And so I think he's worked with Reber Clark before.
In Chicago. Reber in Chicago.
Yeah. Another Chicago person.
Yeah.
Actually, I shot his film.
I
forget what it's called.
Was it the Factory one?
The Factory one. And actually,
I can't remember what it was.
I can't think what it's called.
You guys played it. I saw it at the fest.
Yeah. The unicorn one?
No, it was Lovecraft Syndrome. No,
Lovecraft
that's David
Paragraphs?
Schmidt, no, not Paragraphs. That's
Lovecraft or HP Apology.
Wait, so did you shoot Reber's film or Thomas's film?
Reber's film. Yeah, and essentially, a lot of it took place in a factory. I want to go over to my bookshelf and find it, but
I'm gonna search it. You keep talking, I'm searching.
I'm just rambling now, so stop me when you want to. But yeah, it takes place in a factory. I remember there's a little scene where this mad scientist is like cutting
Lovecraft
into
paragraphs.
no, keep going.
He did one a few years ago with like where he had like
It was
Derleth
really
Seldon
surreal.
sign,
Exactly.
Oh, it was the Derleth. That's right. It was a Derleth
Derleth's
story.
sign or something, but it was about like Lovecraft. There was the
IMDb.
Lovecraft Elder sign and the Derleth Elder sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the
Derleth's
name.
brain. Derleth's
That's-
brain.
oh, that's right.
Thank
2015.
you. I was gonna lose my mind. It's like, yeah.
Derleth's
He
brain.
saved it.
But
It's like a play on Donovan's brain.
he's planning
That's
a
right.
new one, so keep an eye out for that.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
good.
Reber's a great guy.
Yeah,
Reber's
he does a great
What?
job with music. If you need music for anything,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
music or anything, or just even talk about how to adapt. I mean, when we were at Necronomicon years ago, we spent hours getting drunk talking about how to adapt the temple, and from World War One, and
Yeah.
totally still want to do that film.
That would be a good one to do. Remember
Yeah.
when it was the Russian sub was there in Portland or whatever?
Yeah, I went up to Vancouver and Bob Fugger and Torrin to they were in the Dark as a Hillside Thickets, a rock band that plays Lovecraftian inspired music that was brought into the film festival. It was the first one, right, Aaron? They were at the very first film festival.
The Thickets?
I think.
Great question. If it wasn't the first, it was at least the
It was
second.
first.
No, the thickets were there.
Yeah,
the first one?
Yeah,
Jeffrey Combs
Okay.
was there,
pretty
Awesome.
sure. Yeah.
and we had Miguel de Flores, and then you two. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Good time. But yeah. So the temple would be great because I did the Last Incantation because that was one that was killing me not having done that 10 years later. And just real quick on the Last Incantation, Woodruff Laputka, who's the director.
That's right.
Yep, they were there.
Yeah, I got that post.
Woodruff Laputka, who is the director of Last Incantation, he submitted a film to the Lovecraft Film Festival when he was 14, and it was really short. The Abysmal Cosmic Yawning of Horror. I can't remember. I'm really bad with names, but he was 14, and apparently he told me in all seriousness and earnestness that totally changed his life. He became like a cinematographer. He was around the world and as a journalist, taking doing filming for various channels, and he came back. And when I told him, he asked me what films I want to do, and I said, I want to do The Last Incantation. He goes, we could totally do that. And so that's how that film got made. Because,
Wow.
yeah. So again, the group, the influences come back and forth. So it's nice.
I think that was it the Cosmic Abyss of Yawning Horror?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also made a version of the Blackwood, the Wendigo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Sort of a short, like 2-minute adaptation of it.
Yeah. And COVID's, we were talking about making another adaptation, a Weird Tale adaptation, but with COVID, yeah. So
There's ways to get it done, but it's hard.
I'm thinking, where are all the animators? Like, I'm gonna see movies is gonna be animated, right? Because you can work in home on your computer, your stop motion set. Like, I want to see animation everywhere. Lovecraft animation adaptations, guys.
One of the last things that Stewart was trying to do in the Lovecraft vein was to do, because he couldn't get, like, the screenplay I wrote for him, Stuck, was the last feature he did. He just couldn't get work in the film industry anymore. So he went back to his original roots in theater, and he wanted to do a play about Lovecraft and his wife, which I thought, man, that's a cool idea. So if somebody wants to do that out there,
Do you have a script?
Lovecraft's relationship with his wife could be very interesting.
Do you have a script, John?
No, I mean, he was just talking about
Oh.
doing it. He never got around to writing it.
'Cause
But I thought it was a cool idea.
I love that whole thing, and I'm working on Call of Cthulhu role-playing game characters for the
Mhm.
role-playing game, and Sonia Green is one of the characters.
Oh,
that you
she's
can meet.
a
And so-
great character.
So I was
Yeah,
doing research. She was amazing. She was an amazing person,
yeah.
and
She saved him.
yeah.
I mean, she saved him.
Oh, yeah. very much so.
He burned his
So
letters.
I'd be
though.
interested in that. I would totally be interested in something like that.
Well, maybe we should talk.
Yeah,
You know,
let's
maybe we
talk.
should
Get
do
the whole
something.
gang
Let's
back
talk,
together.
Aaron.
film.
Can't do
You have
lunch.
to film the scene though. You have to film the scene where Sonia burns the letters that Lovecraft had written.
Oh
to
yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
Just-
And
Pissed off, yeah.
But what does she mean when she called him an adequately excellent lover?
Adequately excellent
What
lover.
does that mean?
Yeah.
Tentacles.
It's really
Yeah.
It's a little
She,
backhanded.
I
It's a
didn't
little-
know
Excellent.
she lived in Los Angeles. Her house is still here.
Really?
Her final years were in Los Angeles. Yeah,
Oh, I-
her third husband was a USC professor, and her
Wow.
house is still here. Like it's on Western.
Oh, let's
If
go.
you know LA,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, oh my God, this is her house. And
I don't
you know, because
think
I
I knew
looked at the
that.
date bill.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, you
she
have to
lived in
take me
Los
next
time
Angeles.
I
Her
go
house
down
is still here. Yeah.
Nice.
Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So what are we doing on time?
Someday we'll when we're down in LA, you'll take us.
Yeah, I haven't been by it, but I saw it on Google Maps. I'm like, and I looked at the history, like the address, when it was built and when she lived there. And yes, it was built in like 1940, 41, and she
Yeah.
lived there like 44 till the day she died, whatever that was. So yeah, that's her house.
Kind of cool.
Okay, you know, at Necronomicon a couple of Necronomicons ago, I think they staged a play. It was Starry Wisdom, and Lehman Kessler. And Starry played Sonia, and Lehman played Lovecraft.
Mayor Lehman Kessler.
Or Mayor
Yes.
Lehman Kessler.
Mm.
I don't remember the name of the play,
No.
but I'm sure it's searchable in
The
the
life of it.
archives.
So
of Necronomicon.
what did the play cover exactly? Do you remember? Or
I did not get to see it because I was in the dealer's room,
We never get
to see
managing our
anything.
table,
See
and
it,
then
okay.
presenting film programming. So you never get to see anything.
We
Yeah,
were.
yeah.
I got to see the
Yeah.
panel I was on,
Huh.
and I got to see the dealer's room and the film.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
We want to say Lehman Kessler. For those of you who don't know, Lehman Kessler does the Ask Lovecraft. So he like impersonates Lovecraft.
Oh,
You could see it on
yeah,
YouTube and everything. And he's great. He's sort of a comic, and he'll answer questions as H.P. Lovecraft. He's been elected mayor of the town. It's a small town in sorry,
Ohio.
Lehman, I'm getting Ohio. Yeah, I was gonna say Ohio. He's the mayor. He has been elected mayor of this town in Ohio. So I think you should do a Lovecraft, you know, a city hall meeting as Lovecraft.
Spoof Baby says, I think the Lovecraft's Wife play was how Lehman Kessler got his start.
Well, I think people knew who he was. He had already been doing the Ask Lovecraft thing before that.
But it was very early.
Yeah.
It was very early, yeah, for sure. And thank you, Gwen.
Sure.
And Brian Campbell says, I remember seeing Lehman Kessler at one of the Portland cons. Yeah, he came out in 2015 or 14 or something. Yeah, we try to get him out every once in a while because he's a lot of fun.
He did some shows. He came to the, you know, he's like routine, like Saturday night. He did like a stand-up routine Saturday night
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lehman's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the
Check out
Cthulhu
his stuff.
cons, if nothing else, but yeah.
You guys remember when Christopher Heyerdahl came out and did Lovecraft?
It's
No,
the same
I don't
year
remember.
as Patti Smith.
Yes, you do.
Of course I
Oh,
do.
yeah, was
Yeah.
it?
And he
Yeah.
walked into a glass wall.
That
Yes.
year,
Yeah.
I had him at the Heathman Hotel, so I learned three valuable lessons that year because I had Patti Smith, who it took me a year of having conversations with her to have her come out, and she flew from France back to New Jersey to Portland. It was like crazy because she was getting like the highest award for an artist in France at the time, and she was like, "Oh, this is really cool." And then Christopher Heyerdahl, great gentleman, fantastic, and Stuart Gordon was there. That was that year. It was those three. But I had put them. I got the Heathman Hotel downtown, which is a nice upscale hotel, to sponsor the film festival that year. We had put Christopher and Patty, and they got to get along together great, and so it was fantastic. They were chatting, and then we had this, you know, the part of the Heathman thing was to have this little cocktail party type of thing. And when they were walking up, Christopher walked in. He was talking to Patty, and he smashed his head in and lacerated. And the Heathman at the time, I shouldn't be saying this because I am in Portland here, but the hotel at the time was really not wanting to take ownership or help, and so they were not helpful at all. And so Lee Moyer, who was an artist, obviously, who's been involved in the film festival many years, did the film festival posters a long time ago. He helped bring Christopher to a hospital. It was like a nightmare. And then Patty was missing. I mean, it was like, I learned a valuable lesson. Don't have all the guests across the river, away from the theater where it's really hard because all the bridges went up and we all had to get to the theater. So it was very stressful, everyone just.
See, I always thought that happened. I always thought that was your glass like patio door. But
No.
Because I guess I thought, which seems silly now, that he was like staying in your basement.
I was staying in the basement.
Raise your hand
You
if you
shoved him
stayed
into
in
the
Andrew's
glass door.
It
basement.
was like us in the basement. Yeah.
Patty did sit on my couch. So, you know.
Do you have any pictures of that? Are there photos? Because I have to sit back and realize, yeah, Patti Smith, the godmother of punk rock music, was a guest at Lovecraft and loves Lovecraft, recited Lovecraft's poems as a poet, and she appreciated his poetry and did like an acoustic guitar concert.
Yes.
Yeah, like that happened at the Lovecraft Festival.
Yeah.
And Christopher Haredahl, if you guys don't know who's seen it, was the actor who played Lovecraft in Out of Mind, which was this amazing film that's out of print now. That's sort of like a Bravo network. It was in Canada, Bravo network bio of
It was a Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
and
Canadian.
it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's a great film.
Yeah,
Uh, he-
why there's not a lot of
actor.
pictures then? I'll tell you why. I made, again, another thing I learned is hire a professional photographer. So I had all these filmmakers this year, and I said, everyone, I want you all to take, pictures and film Patty and everyone, different angles, get everyone going to contribute. When we rounded up afterwards, and some of you might feel a little guilty right now, I said, all right. And everyone said, I thought they were going to film. And no one filmed.
No one took pictures.
No one took any pictures because they were all enjoying the concert. And no one took anything because everyone thought someone else was going to do it.
Oh, maybe it never happened. It's just a dream.
I've got photos
this happened.
the moon and sixpence afterwards and stuff. And so I have pictures of Patty.
God bless the moon and sixpence.
Yes. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, thank you. That's why you can't rely on filmmakers if you're going to have.
No.
One of the many reasons.
Yeah.
So Brian, this is the
there.
25th edition coming up.
25th anniversary
Yeah,
festival
in October.
in October.
It's amazing.
I know that you and I have had a discussion about what anniversary means. I know you've talked about it with Andrew, but this
Andrew
is
has a
this is
weird
the
counting
25th.
system on this. Yeah.
This is the 25th festival.
Yeah, the counting part of it is because that's
It's not the 25th year, or is it?
the
It's
founding.
the 20.
I think
It's the
it's 25th
25th
year.
festival that's happened.
So
So
one
it's
year he did 2 or something. When we went to
just
Salem, you mean?
consecutive years.
It's the 25th festival.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All
like,
right,
Yeah.
well,
there was one,
But you might call it the 26th anniversary or maybe the 24th anniversary, depending on how you count. But this year will be the 25th film festival
it's non-Euclidean.
in Portland.
You
It's
can't
not
understand.
Euclidean. Yeah.
Non-Euclidean.
it's kind of like, like world premiere, West Coast premiere.
Right.
Well, we did a edition of it back in what year was that when we went to Salem?
Oh
Andrew?
man, I don't know anymore.
Really?
That was a lot of fun. That was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I got to stay in the Witch House, like that, the Pyramid House.
Oh,
Nice.
I wasn't the Witch House, but it looked exactly like the Witch House. But John and I,
But the witch house was there. I
yeah,
mean,
we went.
yeah.
Remember, we did the tour and we
yeah.
saw the houses, and then we went to Walden's Pond and stuff, and so that was fun. It was a good time.
And the graveyard where, was it? Is it the out? Which is the story with the graveyard with the
St.
tree?
John's Cemetery.
The tree
I think
growing
that's-
out of the grave.
Is that St. John's?
Is that the Hound?
Unnameable.
Unnameable, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
It's there. That inspired them. So it's a great town.
Seven Gables, we saw.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun. So we did a film festival in Salem as part of their big event. We did Vancouver, BC. Did another Canadian one. I think we did a couple in Vancouver. Seattle, of course. Aaron ran for many years. That one is down in San Pedro. Did Austin, Texas.
We found a Kathy Welch film, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So who found it? Was that you? Who had the poster?
I found the poster on eBay because after I did Pickman's model, I just
Right.
kept, it was like one of the Lovecraft, Cthulhu, Pickman's model things I kept always putting in eBay every week. And I got this poster. I'm like, what's that? And bought it and showed it to Andrew. He's like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah, that was great. That was another film. I tried to
that's a cool film.
Yeah, it was great, especially for the time, and I got to meet Kathy. I met her in Austin. That was fun. Yeah, so someday Brian and Gwen will continue to do this. We got the one in Providence, right? You're gonna do it and make a big, pentagram.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We
We
allowed
keep-
to go
on the
to
map,
Providence
We
again.
keep trying to do one in New Orleans. We keep trying to go down there. We thought we'd do Portland, Providence, New Orleans, sort of, we get, an inverted
Okay.
triangle going. But we have a hard time booking a theater in New Orleans. Everybody drinks during the day. I mean, we lived there for a long time, so we can say that. Everybody drinks during the day. So getting anybody on the phone is really hard. Nobody answers emails,
Yeah, you're not
so
selling it, Brian. You're not selling it.
we think, I mean, it would be great. And we have a whole support system there too, because we lived there for almost a decade. Although we've lived here longer now. So I think now we're Portland. I don't know if we get to be Portlanders yet. How many years does that take, Andrew?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, but I got to tell you how many years I was trying to work on both of you to move out here. Back when I still had my business and, trying to get like, hey, let's do all this stuff. Sad. It took a hurricane and an oil spill finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And we didn't even, like, I think right around Katrina, you said, hey, now's the time, move out here. And we went, no, I don't know. I think we're going to stick with New Orleans because, it's rebuilding and everything like that. And then we stuck it in for another, 3 years, 5 years after the storm. Yeah. And finally decided, screw this joint. We're going to Portland.
I think we got to all get into Chicago. That's I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what we're. That's
Columbia
our-
College should host it.
Yeah.
We did talk.
Absolutely.
We talked to Ken Haidt and Reber about doing something up in Chicago. There, they sang the Music Box Theater.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Music Box
yeah,
is a
yeah.
Beautiful.
There's a
theater.
couple
They're still there,
independent
yeah.
theaters. There's one called the Portage Theater and another one called the Patio. They're a little run down, but a lot of low budget filmmakers rent them out to do like their premieres and stuff.
Hey, Robert,
They're pretty
is
accessible.
is the Three Penny still open? In
No,
Old Town?
I think I don't even think there's a theater there
Oh,
anymore.
wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Is that
I
across
could
from-
be wrong, but it was across from
Where Dillinger got
yeah,
shot.
Yeah,
across
right, the
from
bio- the
other
Biograph.
theater, Yeah, the
Yeah.
Biograph. That's it. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a great theater. It was all black inside. And that's where I
Yeah.
first saw
Like your heart,
Eraserhead. When we
like
started
your heart.
playing the Midnight Circuit. It was really a perfect theater for that.
So I've got a few comments from the log here. Speaking about Patti Smith, Brian Campbell said that was a great concert, and then but then he recanted and said it must have just been a dream he had since there's no photograph. That's what happens when you don't document stuff.
Well, we have pictures of her in the theater, just not performing.
And then a Shadow Demon 2311 says from Patti Smith to Necronomidol.
Necronomicon.
And that was Necronomidol is this wonderful little this was this
Japanese
wonderful
idol band.
Japanese idol band
Yeah.
that sings. All their songs are based on Lovecraft or weird tales, but in the mold of a conventional idol band. And they came out from Japan 2018
2 years ago.
2018 and performed live. And the people watching the Q&A will get a little bit of a thing here. We're talking to them about doing something virtual this year, and they're very into it.
Yeah.
So
Oh, no.
so
Yeah.
stay tuned
Really
for that.
fun.
Yeah, they were great. They were high energy,
Super fun.
very professional fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Spoof Baby also says, "Witch House."
That house.
You have to
And
walk
Brian
through the,
Campbell said, "What does it all mean, Elwood?
Yeah. What does it all mean?
What does it all mean?"
Are we ever going to see that again?
Yes.
I only saw
yes.
that one. Okay.
Oh.
Every
You have to
every
come
year except
here to see it though.
For those of you that are wondering if we're going to stream it,
No.
No.
No, never do it.
that cannot.
we're gonna
happen.
do a live.
I'm so
I'm
sorry.
trying to
Never do
find-
it.
It
Please
does
don't
need to
hate us.
kind of be like a little hidden secret gem thing.
does.
Yeah.
Wait a
When
minute,
you
is
stream
this-
Rocky Horror, you wouldn't
Live.
stream Rocky Horror.
Is this the Elwood thing? you're
Yeah.
talking about? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
We screened it one of the early years at the San Pedro LA festival, and I rented like this abandoned storefront with a basement, and we literally hung up like a white sheet on the floor and had like this little video projector, and we're like downstairs in this with red walls and
That's
these
very-
fold out chairs, and I'm like, okay, now we do the real movies.
like-
Nobody leaves.
It was
Yeah.
like midnight or 1 a.m. and there was probably 20 people
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, there was a
they
lot.
hadn't been exposed to it before.
No.
So while I think they enjoyed
yeah.
it, there was an element of why are we watching this, right?
Some of them got it. The Elwood one, like Miguel Rodriguez came up to me and said this was a transcendental experience. You know, he runs the Horrible Imaginings film and was organizer of the LA film. And so he's in San Diego, does a horror film festival down there. And he's like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. Because it's a movie, for those of you who don't know, a secret, but it is so bad. It is transcendental.
Oh,
So
it is. Yeah.
It's even worse.
Yeah.
Like Birdemic holds no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so bad.
But it's
It
such
is
a
good.
faithful adaptation too.
That's always
Yeah.
for us. It's always the answer because we always hear people say, "Why does everybody change Lovecraft stories? You know, you're gonna making your movie. Why don't you just make Lovecraft? That's perfectly okay." Well, this is a film that is perfectly and faithfully adapts a Lovecraft story, and that does not help it. That does not help it. That is not. Turns out that's not what all these films needed.
Yeah.
Brian, can we?
Kinda like
We're
what,
gonna do a live performance. Can we just do like a couple scenes? Maybe the three of us we can get together and do remotely do a live.
what does it all mean?
Actually, Andrew's really got it with
Yeah,
the
he's
background.
got it.
That really does it. Yeah.
You have to be screaming.
You need that.
Yeah, I
I
need
have
a
the
ferret.
witch hat. I have the Wizard of Oz witch hat.
She's really a witch.
Yeah.
I love it.
Warts and all.
Just need a ferret.
Andrew said before, it's still the heart, though. I mean, clearly, they really wanted to make that, and
Oh yeah.
they did the best they could. And
It's not a casual endeavor. They've got there's a TV TV news broadcast with like the Arkham News banner and everything. Had like live graphics. So it's they put everything into it, man.
The soap opera was the best part, where they have a little soap opera in the background before they get to the news channel, where they,
oh yeah.
the Wilbur, Lavidia.
Right. That's right. It's the double chores, the soap opera. That's right. I forgot about that.
I gotta ask Migliori something. Are
Uh-oh.
we doing another edition?
Yes.
Yeah.
All these Lovecraft films and
Oh,
Lovecraft
this?
County
Yeah, you need to do a
Country,
third
is
edition.
turning into like a big hit, I think.
Updated.
That could be like a major hit for HBO. So
Yeah,
maybe we need to do one. I still see the book quoted every now and then in articles and stuff. So
The problem is, even when we did the second edition, which is like 400 pages, I can't remember. They cut. I mean, remember Jason cut a lot.
I remember To Oblivion shrunk a little.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the short films we had to really make them short because they said, well, we're burning our page, too many pages. So I can't imagine how to do it now because it's so big.
well, you would just start. You would start from a certain year and go forward, right?
Oh, you mean make it volumes?
Put out. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like a second volume.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, when
So
did
when that
did
stopped,
book end? Like 20
continue. Yeah.
There's enough films, I
that's really
think.
good.
I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So you can get all the ones that you missed in volume 2, and then whenever that year stopped, do everything up to then.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
now there's, I think Call of Cthulhu was out when you guys did this, but now there's, Defarba and The Whisper in Darkness and Color Out of Space. And those are just notable features. There's so much stuff now.
And by the way, the games that are based on Lovecraft, I just saw a demo called The Shore. Have you heard about this thing?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You should look it up. I mean, the
looks
guy's
cool.
playing a demo of it. It's all based on Lovecraft, the Lovecraft mythos. And a guy is like washed on a shore and he's trying to find his daughter, and there's a lighthouse, and it's pretty wild. I mean, and it was like a 20-minute demo, but the detail was just incredible.
Nice.
There's so many ways that Lovecraft has sort of snuck into all the different art forms, and like I play a lot of video games. Well, not anymore really, but almost every little thing I play, any kind of horror game has some sort of Lovecraft reference. And that dark game, with the guy with the shadows, had a big tree called the Great Old One. Alan Wake, the Alan Wake game.
Oh yeah.
And the Witcher 3 has the Necronomicon. You can pick it off of a couple bookshelves in the world, and Skyrim.
All the
references to
common low-hanging fruit things that get dropped in. It's so ubiquitous in pop culture now.
Yeah.
And it used to be such a treat when we find it, right? Like no one was
Yeah.
knowing about it, and it was a treat. Like, going, ooh, I get it.
I think some of these people are probably referencing Lovecraft and don't even know it's Lovecraft.
Yeah, I think so, John.
That's how ubiquitous it is, So.
I mean, Cthulhu is. I mean, Cthulhu is is around so much. Like in South Park and everything. I think a lot of people just know that.
Yeah.
When it's quoted on
Rick and Morty or something.
Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, you know, it's like it's way in the mainstream, and it's like
Colbert loves Lovecraft. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's just fascinating how it spread, how it was so hard before, especially in the early years of trying to go to Comic-Con and recruiting things and trying to recruit. And I know Brian and Gwen and Aaron, gone many years, but like so hard in the early days, and now it's not. Like every game, I go look on Kickstarter, and like every game has a Cthulhu element to it, and or a mythos element to it.
Well, it's funny too. I think people know it from the games more sometimes than the actual short stories. It's they're playing some dice game, and it's like, oh, it's Cthulhu. It's like, well, do you even know what that is? Yeah.
Well, this is an interesting question. I mean, do we make these movies to get people to read the stories? What if people don't even read the stories anymore? Is that a sad thing, or?
Well, not to throw myself under the bus, but I know when I was a kid and wanted to make that movie, I thought, oh, no one knows what this is. It's like, it's kind of plagiarism. All I had to do was say a story by H.P. Lovecraft, but I sort of got the credit for it. But that was a very long time ago. Now, everyone knows exactly what it is, and the HBO stuff now. So.
And that's going to expose it to a whole new audience, So
yeah.
There was a question in the chat that asked, if you guys wanted to weigh in on Lovecraft Country. How many of you have seen the first episode? So I haven't watched no spoilers. Well, although I've read that part of the book, I haven't watched it yet because I'm still reading the book. But I think I passed probably the first episode's worth of content.
My verdict is out currently. I like it. I do. I think there's my son and I watched it. I wasn't so happy with the opening, big Mars thing.
No spoilers.
Princess of Mars.
Well,
the title sequence.
That was like not so cool. The sound design not so great, but I think the acting, the cast is great. The topic is fascinating and fantastic and great. So I'm really looking forward to the next episode to see how it gets translated from the book. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean they're doing like the typical thing where where you're adapting a book, you condense characters or you change characters, but the gist is pretty much there.
I think they did a good job.
I enjoyed it. I went into kind of thinking I wasn't going to like it because of Abrams. I just hate that guy, Jar Jar Abrams. And I don't like what Peele did to Twilight Zone. I thought that was a mess.
It was horrible. Twilight Zone was really.
It was a travesty what he did to that. I couldn't believe it. But this is looking pretty good. But it's only the first episode, so we'll see. Hopefully it'll be good.
The verdict is out.
I usually.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm
waiting to binge it. I very much is like, okay, this is the weekend that I'll watch the whole thing in one.
But I got to tell you,
there's like 3 episodes. I'll watch them together.
It's because you see what's like trending. Especially, I watch a lot of YouTube for some reason, and there are so many reviews of this thing on YouTube. It's like sort of like Game of Thrones or Watchmen did the same thing, and I think it's that level of interest.
HBO does something. They do it at a very high quality level, I think.
Yeah,
that dragon money. That's what John Oliver always says. That dragon money is really coming through for me.
I tell you but the art direction is so fantastic. You look at every detail. I'm looking at every printed thing. I'm looking at like their shoelaces. I'm looking at the stitching on their clothing. And it is like they've got really great art direction, so it looks fantastic.
Well, they actually reproduced some famous photographs from the Jim Crow South, and they use it in all the segregated entrances, and when they go to the ice cream store or the shop, So yeah, the detail's amazing.
Yeah. So and
And it replicates Chicago too, right? Because there's
It
some
really looked
Chicago
like
film in there.
Chicago. I
No,
thought.
it is Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, did
It's
they
kind
shoot
of
in
funny
Chicago?
that
Yeah.
the bar, the bar that they're in at the beginning.
Mhm.
It was kind of ironic. It's just like a couple days later, I was been doing this documentary about John Wayne Gacy, and he used to go there a lot. and well, this is what's even funnier about that bar. Dahmer used to go there too.
What the hell?
So, yeah. Well, this
Wait.
is kind of why. Like across the street, it's well, it was right next to the Organic Theater. But across the street was that Dunkin' Donuts that was always kind of considered. It had a little funny name to it. It was like it was kind of like the Pumpkin Donuts, because it was like kind of like when all the punk kids were there a long time ago. They would hang out at that Dunkin' Donuts because there was a lot of room for skateboarding.
Oh,
And that bar looks out on it. And from what we know from Gacy and Dahmer, they would sit at that window and check out all the young boys.
The kids.
Across
Oh,
the street.
wow. Yeah.
So yeah, so it was like a creepy bar to begin with, and it hasn't changed. It's like it's really run down. The way it looks in the movie is the way it still looks now. They didn't really set decorate it. But yeah, so it kind of freaked me out when I saw the beginning of the episode.
He's in his father's bedroom right next to the L track. You know,
I've had apartments like.
Did you have an apartment like?
Yeah,
I wasn't that close.
How Chicago comes back, even with Lovecraft County, we get it all.
I'll say this: Chicago seems very
Central.
the nexus. It's probably the nexus in the ley lines.
All the games
Well, it
too.
goes
It
back to
always kind of
H.H. Holmes.
gravitated to the 1920 Chicago too. Even though I can't really think of any Lovecraft stories that was part of. Even though the games kind of gravitate that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chaosium had like was it a Chicago Gaslight or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's back to gaming. See that you're talking about politics early round.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Oh, wasn't but Lovecraft's father didn't he go insane in Chicago?
I think he was in a hotel in Chicago.
He was in a hotel in Chicago.
Oh,
we went crazy. Yeah.
Back to Chicago.
That's right. Well, I'm just trying to think
happened.
that Chicago. Yeah, I think it was his father.
Yeah, see, Rob's going to wake up in that warehouse with all the padding. He's going to wake up and go, I had this horrible dream. I was in a web.
I don't know if we can, Brian, can we talk about villainy, or is that kind of like, no?
We're talking about what?
You know, villainy.
Oh,
what's our
yeah,
time limit?
Yeah, you can. Well, you can.
Well, we might. I did a play
end and let everybody plug
last
stuff
year out here based on H.H. Holmes, which is the big Chicago first serial killer during the exposition. And I shot a video of it, and we might show it through this theater at some point. And it has a lot of Chicago history in it, and Chicago's that kind of town. You know, it's toddling, as they say. So.
Yeah, we talked to the Hollywood Theater about doing like an event sort of like this where we show it, and it's very cool. It's very good. It took me a little while to get around to watching the recording, but man, that's a cool play.
Hmm.
And
well, he was a really interesting character. I mean, you know,
Murder Castle.
Yeah. And I love the way.
Well, there's another guy
that
I mean, you know, I have one of these Google alert things. It just says H.H. Holmes, and almost every day there's an article about this guy. And this is the guy, you know, this Devil in the White City, Larson's book, and all these huge stars wanted to play him, like Tom Cruise and Leo DiCaprio wanted to play him, and then they were going to make it into a series for Hulu, and Stuart and I, we wrote a mini series about him called Slaughterhouse that got optioned, and I thought it was going to get made. It was going to be a 3-part big deal miniseries, but then, you know, at the last minute it fell apart. So there's always interest in him, you know. We're kind of veering off Lovecraft here, but anyway.
It's okay.
Sure. Well, I had heard about him on the Lore podcast did an episode on him.
Sure.
And there was an episode on that Timeless show, TV show, the time traveling
that was interesting, that one, yeah, because they show the fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we
Houdini
probably We could talk for hours and hours and hours, and I'd really love to. But we probably should start to wrap up. I think we've been going for
2 hours and 9 minutes.
Couple hours, yeah.
Hour and 44.
well, we didn't start on time. An hour and 44 minutes. Give or take, but hour and a half or so because we started a little late after the late time. But I want to thank everybody for being here. We did have one question in there, which we talked about the 1975 Whisper in Darkness with J. Vernon Shea. Right. Somebody had asked if there was a way to see that. As it turns out, this DVD I keep talking about, it's actually going to have a restored version on it.
Oh, cool.
So this will be the first time that that's ever been released. That's part of the reason why Classics Volume 3 is taking so long, is because I got one scan of it and it wasn't very good, kind of like what I did with John's piece. And I thought, if this is a restoration project, we need to do better. So we went to the better place, and they're going to do a scan, but they're having troubles with 8mm. So I have to wait for their new piece of machinery to come in, and that'll be in the early September.
Hey, Andrew, how did we find out about that?
For me, Brian.
Franklin Hummel.
Hummel, yeah.
Hummel, because he had a short film too. And so remember when we were trading, back in the day, we anything that we could find that was anything remotely Lovecraft, we would exchange in terms of videotape, so that we
copy of a VHS,
and they'd be horrible copies, but that way we could see it and talk about it. And so we were doing that back in the day.
Hummel did a Haunter of the Dark, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A short one.
Yeah, short one. Yep.
Yeah, I've not seen that one. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, there are some things that should not be seen.
But in addition,
it's exciting that you can get a better copy, because that's what kept me, I think, from showing some of the other there's various films that the quality, we could never find one that was good enough. There's also, what was that feature film, Spider blah blah blah, I can't remember right now.
Spider Labyrinth.
Yes, it's like finding a copy.
So good.
It's so good, but getting a good copy. So, and I talked to Sandy Peterson about that. We've been looking for that stuff for a long time, trying to hunt them out.
Well, Brian, it's great that you're preserving that, because that's sort of like the first one.
Yeah,
as far as we know, yeah.
And Brian, since you've taken on the mantle for all this, what was it, Mark of Death? That's the first feature Lovecraft film. That was before the Haunted Palace. I was having my brother-in-law, who speaks Spanish, trying to go in Mexico, trying to track down. You need to take on that project, because there is a really probably interesting film that was butchered that needs to be kind of restored. So I'm challenging you, everyone here, right? All the filmmakers are nodding, right? Yeah, Ryan, take it on.
Well, that's also Charles Dexter Ward, right?
Yeah, Charles Dexter Ward, but they made it more vampire-esque.
Yeah.
But you could really, if you cut out all the stuff that I can't remember who the American director was who added all that crap in there. But if you take all that stuff out and put it together, and you can imagine the pieces that are missing, there's a film there. Restore it, Brian. You should do it.
What year was that from?
What year?
60, right? Was it?
Really?
Yeah, someone has my book somewhere, right? With John's book.
It's too
bad.
It's
1960.
It's
too bad we can't restore Dan O'Bannon's take on Charles Dexter Ward.
Yeah, John and I got to see his.
Oh, that was a trip.
Yeah, we went over
meeting. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah.
Work print. You got to see his work print.
Yeah.
They didn't restore, so they released a new Blu-ray, but they didn't restore they didn't make the Ancestor, which was the.
Yeah, he was very disappointed about that.
And there's another person that passed.
We got told, we tried to play his work print of that a few years ago, and when that Blu-ray release was about to happen, we got told that basically nobody's going to ever see it again.
Well, there's no extras on that Blu-ray, is there? There's nothing extra.
Years now, so
Yeah.
The Blu-ray has a lot of deleted scenes, but they're not reintegrated.
Oh, okay, right.
because I thought he came the closest. I mean, some of those scenes are just horrific.
Yeah, I mean,
Solid story.
Chris Sarandon, I thought did a fantastic job.
I mean, the detective and all that, but whatever, you know.
But you know the story right there, John, right? The whole thing that Dr. Willett was a busybody and like it really was a detective story at heart, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And if you take the doctor element and put it as an investigator, it makes more sense, really. And I think, you know, I think that was Dan's position. I would think that was Stuart's position, if I remember correctly too. You know, that was one of my fun favorite stories when I was growing up.
Yeah, I loved it. That was the first thing I adapted as a screenplay. And I took it out here, and some people were interested, but you know, whatever. That's showbiz.
Well, let's wrap up. Before we end and say goodnight to everyone, tell the viewers at home where they can follow you on social media, read about your projects. If you've got a website. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
And let's go. Well, nobody's seeing the boxes the way we are, but I'm going to start with Andrew. So why don't you tell us about what you've got going on, where people can find out about your thing, you know, your thing.
Still have let's see, lurkerfilms.com. So lurkerfilms.com. Last Incantation is the last project I did. That's pretty recent. I'm not really. I'm a basement dweller. I hide from. I don't fit into society so well. So like, I do have a Twitter account and stuff, but I'm very rare. Facebook, very rare. I just don't. I'm not involved. I just hide. That's what I do. So, but hopefully, I think John and I, we got a book we got to write. So let's.
Yeah, we got to do that. All right.
You need
Let's
any
do it. Yeah, I don't care.
help? I will totally help you guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Good.
And Christian, you've got your Necronomicon book project. You want to talk about that for a sec?
Sure. I'm through Patreon. It's patreon.com/propping up the mythos. I'm 200 pages into an 800-page Elizabethan Necronomicon that will look like this. And
Wow.
Aaron's holding up some of the pages. Each month I mail out
So cool.
eight pages aged with woodcuts, and we're just chugging along. I don't know. I don't know quite where it's all coming from.
So can people? So you've been doing it now for at least a couple of years, right?
2 years. Yep. 2.5 actually.
Can people get back in on the beginning? Like, can they get the early pages?
Absolutely. Yep. And you can follow me on Twitter at prop up the mythos. There's too many letters. And on Instagram and Facebook as at propping up the mythos. So yeah, just shoot me a message and I'll catch you up.
And I'm also working with Christian and John to release their older movie, Dunwich, which was his adaptation of the Dunwich Horror that I don't think has been seen in ages, right?
It played just
at the festival.
Yeah, just the one time at the festival. It's a prequel. It kind of takes place in the middle of the Dunwich Horror, so it's before Wilbur is fully grown, or as fully grown as he gets, and sort of an interesting little side story of what could happen. And boy, have we changed it for the re-release. It's a lot better.
Yeah, there was never an intention to go back and edit these films, really, but then it sort of became well, why not? Why not present the best version of the story, you know?
But it goes back to like you know, Aaron had said there was a festival to show it, and so we took it to the festival. We did show it. It didn't really go anywhere, and so we could have reworked it, but we weren't going to bring it back to the festival. So it wasn't until you said, "Hey, I've cut 10 minutes out of it. What do you think?" I'm like, well, let's cut 10 more. You know?
Oh, that's right. That was my idea, wasn't it? Okay. Yeah.
Less is more.
So, I'm very excited for the slimmed down version to get a home. So thank you for that.
It is very different. It plays very different, and it's we also got, like we're trying to do with all these films, we're trying to go back and get the best footage. So we went back to your original digital 8 tapes and had those transferred to basically cut a new movie, essentially.
Yeah.
And then Rick Tillman, why don't you tell us about what you've got going on?
Well, just like Christian, Brian has coaxed me into cutting 10 minutes out of Pickman's model, and it plays a lot better. It's, 17 years later, but at the time I was like so focused on, I wanted to get every word out of the short story, coming out on screen, and then just a lot of stuff like, talking about something and then showing it later. Like, you don't need to talk about it, you just show it. And it's been honestly a liberating experience of just kind of going in and looking at it, with hopefully some wisdom of 17 years into it, so I'm excited about that. So that'll be coming out in October.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I guess Dark Whisper Films, I haven't updated the site in a while. I should probably do that because of this, so I will. That's a way to get a hold of me. And I'm actually, for a while now, been poking around on a stop motion animation thing. So Aaron will be happy about a version of the festival.
Cool.
Nice. And you're also associated with Strange Eons magazine, but is there still a magazine?
There is. We've been horribly delinquent on the last issue, so issue 24 is going to come out. Then we're going to kind of take a break on that, and Kelly and I are working on some publishing some different chapbooks that I can't really talk about publicly yet, but those should be coming out, within the next 6 months or so, which should be pretty cool.
Cool. And Mr. Streisig. So we've talked about, the music of Eric Zahn also for the collection, and we actually got to see that tonight. Although, like I said, I was nervous because it's still a little rough. But
I thought it looked great. I mean, I have a few notes I could give you, but I thought you did a really good, and I'm amazed at that, CRI is still holding up.
Yeah.
But Goy did a great job shooting that thing. I don't know what I've been doing. Again, a lot of plays. In fact, I had one scheduled to go this year about John Dee. Talking about what Kristen is doing, and Dee was he was sort of like the Stephen Hawking's of his day. I mean, in terms of his fame, and Shakespeare probably. Based Prospero on him, and in The Tempest. And there's a theory that Shakespeare traveled to Europe with Dee, but whatever. But anyway, Dee was involved with talking to angels and spirits, and trying to understand the secrets of creation. And the angels were dictating this language, which became the Enochian language, and a lot of ritual magicians use it today. But it sounds like Cthulhu. I mean, the language is just amazing, and it is a real language. And of course, I heard about him through Lovecraft. Lovecraft says he was the first guy who translated the Necronomicon into English. So I'm just interested how much Lovecraft really knew about him, because I remember ST, the whole idea of Lovecraft and the occult, which of course he didn't believe in any of that stuff. But how deep he got into somebody like Dee. I know ST said, well, he knew what was in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and that's about it. But I don't know, Dee's influence on Lovecraft mythos could be pretty profound. But anyway, the play is an adaptation of his spiritual diaries that he wrote, and it's just the language in it is like a lost Shakespeare play. I mean, and I'm just been adapting that, and we're going to do it with a bunch of masks and that kind of thing. It should be a fun play we can get off the ground. But in the meantime, we might make a radio play of it, because it is voices in his head. These angels talking to him all the time and telling him these weird visions. So we're trying to do that right now.
That'd be good.
And I don't have a website or anything.
I was going to say I have at least one, maybe two references for the Enochian language on my bookshelf. Yeah. And certainly the only reason I'm interested in that and have those is because Lovecraft mentioned Dee.
Exactly. That's how I got involved. But there's again, go to YouTube. There's a great BBC biography about him that features like Alan Moore. I was going to ask you guys, I guess we don't have time for this, but what did you think of Providence, the comic book series that Alan Moore did on Lovecraft?
I liked a lot of it. I liked a lot of it.
It's a pretty intense series. I mean, and the references, and of course, ST's in the last issue, which is kind of cool. But that's another, a whole other series of adaptations that can go on forever. Lovecraft in comics.
Yeah,
just amazing the amount of material.
We actually had a fun panel on Lovecraft and comics last year.
Did
And
you?
I think maybe, is it on
Did it get
YouTube?
recorded?
It did get recorded. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but maybe we'll talk to the, it was actually a presentation. Maybe we'll talk to the presenter and see if he's game, and we'll put it up. Because he did a pretty good job of kind of pacing through some of the generations. Wait, Robert, Mr. Capoletto, what's going on with you?
Nothing really new, but it's kind of funny. Everyone else was talking about editing their old projects, but I've been meaning to snip a few minutes out of Pickman's Muse and put it on Amazon Prime. But the DVDs are still out there, so if anyone's interested, look for Pickman's Muse on Amazon, if I can say that. I guess I already did.
Oh, you can't.
We're on a 30-second delay.
Sorry, I'll take it back. Yeah, you can bleep that.
Pickman's Muse is really a pretty great film for anybody out in the audience that's still with us that hasn't seen it. And there's definitely still people with us. It's a really cool film, and he made great use of Chicago area landmarks to reproduce the cathedral, and I think is just wonderfully shot.
Yeah, that turned out nice.
Yeah, thanks. I'm proud of how low budget it was. I really managed to squeeze every penny out of it. So
I saw it for the first time at the Lovecraft Film Festival the year it premiered there, and seeing it up on that big screen, I mean, it's beautiful movie.
yeah, well, yeah, actually, again, Andrew, thanks, because I think there wasn't anything cooler than seeing it up on a big 40-foot screen. It was like, oh my god, this is great. So yeah,
seeing what you made on that big screen is just.
It's actually 60 feet.
With an
60
audience
feet.
like
60 feet, even better. That's why I was, yeah.
that's great.
Can people follow you on Twitter or anything, or do you do that stuff at all?
Not too much really. I think there is like a Pickman's Muse Facebook page, but I'll take a look tomorrow and kind of update it. But I haven't touched it in years, so
I'll probably do that.
yeah.
And last but not least, Mr. Vanek, what have you got going on?
I am gone back to the original Lovecraft inspiration for me was the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game by Chaosium. So I'm doing a lot of work on that. I've got a supplement on psychedelic drugs in the mythos. So there's based on fabricated ones like that Clark Ashton Smith had and Lovecraft mentions, and so getting the authors as well as realistic drugs. That's like almost 10 years overdue. I'm working on characters I mentioned earlier that you could play in the same. Sonia Green's going to be in the first volume. We've got our classic restoration of the video that's coming out, and hopefully after that we're going to compile all my Lovecraft films into one, or Weird Tales into a DVD. So it'll be The Outsider, my Necronomicon, Return to Innsmouth finally on DVD because it's only here on VHS, and The Yellow Sign, and put all those together on one DVD. That'll be something there. So very cool stuff. I got tons of other stuff that I'm doing. You can find me at aaronvanek.com. That's my personal website. So aaronvanek.com. And then I formed a company last year. It's actually been a year and a day with my wife Kirsten, called Spectacular Disaster Factory. So if you go to we still have to get the website, but spectaculardisasterfactory.com, where that's like our corporate imprint, so to speak. We do immersive interactive theater plays, stage plays, and things like that. So but you can find me relatively easily. Although there is another Aaron Vanek out there who did an immersive theater show in like Minneapolis, somewhere in the Midwest. And we actually hooked up and we're trying to collaborate on something. So by Aaron Vanek and Aaron Vanek. But
was that his immersive theater piece, was being Aaron Vanek, or
no, it was on something. I was I was Googling myself. So I Googled Aaron Vanek, and then there was this like Aaron Vanek immersive theater, which I do. And I'm like, wait, what? This isn't me. And I'm like, look, can I talk to this? Because I'm the same. He's a younger kid. He's like in his mid to late 20s. So we want to collaborate on something just for the name. Aaron Vanek and Aaron Vanek present something.
Vanek and Vanek.
Yeah.
Is your doppelganger?
Yeah. We haven't met, but we've
The Black
exchanged
Lodge.
emails. Yeah.
It's funny when you do things like that. You know, I think most of us have Googled our names at some point. I think there's a basketball player that's named Brian Callahan, but there's also a costume department guy in Hollywood named Brian Callahan, and he worked on that film, the Deja Vu, the Tony Scott film with Denzel Washington.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny is
on that.
I extraed in that movie. I'm not in it. I'm not in it, but I was on set playing a chef. And so they in the back of the Palace Cafe, which is a very nice restaurant there, and I was just in the kitchen. And to this day, I wonder, is the guy that outfitted me Brian Callahan? And it seems like it has to be. You know, he gave me like, I had a stovepipe hat, like a chef's hat, and smocks, and you know, the checks and everything like that. And I'm never in the movie. They never even turned the camera towards me, so there's no film record. But you were there too, right? But
I'm not in the film.
didn't we get a catch of your hair in like a mirror or something like that?
No, that was Todd.
Oh, it's another friend of ours. Yeah. I've always wondered about that. Did I meet another Brian Callahan and didn't know it? Weird.
Happens.
Yes, you did.
Anyway, on that note, guys, we've kept you long enough. Thanks so much for being here. Don't sign off right now. We'll go ahead and end the broadcast, and then we can, if anybody wants to say goodbye, we can say goodbye and go our separate ways.
Well, again, thank you for all your work you're doing with these films, Brian.
Yes.
And we really appreciate it, and you're doing a great job. And can I have my $20 now?
I appreciate you saying
Brian,
so.
Gwen, and Andrew, thanks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right, I'm going to sneak around and do the technical stuff.
Okay, he's gonna bye. Well, again, Brian and Gwen, thank you for keeping it going. Thank you so much. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
All right.
Bye bye.
Right.
Hi, Rob. See you.
All right. Thanks.
Kristen. See you.
Andrew.
Andrew, you still there?
I don't know. Are we still here?
I hear you.
I hear you.